The discomfort doesn't arrive loudly, it settles. Like something pressing just under the skin. It often shows up when everything else finally stops. When the lights are low, when there's no one asking anything, the body relaxes, the chest doesn't. There's a pause where nothing hurts exactly, but nothing feels light either. You sit there longer than you meant to, not thinking, not resting, just existing inside a quiet that feels slightly too full. It's strange how familiar that feeling becomes. Most people would call it loneliness, but that word feels wrong, too sharp, too obvious. This isn't the ache of wanting company. It's the weight of having had too much of it before. You notice it when conversations end, when the door closes, when the phone goes face down, your shoulders drop, your breath slows. Relief comes first, then something heavier follows behind it. You don't rush to name it. You rarely do. There was no argument, no rejection, no moment where everything broke. Things just thinned out. People drifted, plans faded. The circle shrank without announcement. And oddly, that didn't feel like failure. Not exactly. It felt like something else was happening, something harder to explain. But that's not the part most people notice. What they notice is the absence. The empty weekends, the quiet phone. They wonder why someone like you isn't surrounded by more voices. They assume it's choice or chance or some flaw that's easier not to ask about. They don't see what happens inside a single interaction. There's something quieter happening underneath. It starts with how much you notice, not details, atmosphere. The shift when a room tightens, the moment a smile stops matching the eyes, the pause someone fills too quickly. You pick up on these things without trying, without deciding to. It's not a skill you learned. It's just how perception landed in you. At first, it feels neutral. Then it feels useful. People feel safer around you. They don't know why. They slow down. They speak honestly. They say things they didn't expect to say. You don't interrupt. You don't rush them through it. You stay present. That presence costs something, but you don't notice the cost yet. You're focused outward. You always have been. You adjust your tone, your timing, your responses. It feels natural, like kindness, like being someone others can lean on without fear. But each time, something small is set aside, not intentionally, not dramatically. Just a slight turning away from your own center. You leave conversations carrying more than you arrived with, but it doesn't feel wrong. It feels normal. That's how it accumulates, not in one heavy moment, but in dozens of quiet ones. You replay conversations later without wanting to. You feel moods that aren't yours lingering in your chest. You wonder if someone is okay long after they've moved on. You don't tell anyone this. It feels unnecessary. You're fine. You always are. But the tiredness starts earlier than it used to. Before social plans, before messages. You feel it in your body first. A reluctance that doesn't have a story. You begin to pull back without deciding to. You reply later. You stay home more. You choose quiet even when you could choose company. Not because you don't care, because caring has weight. And weight adds up. That's where it starts to change. You begin to notice patterns, not in others, in yourself. How often you leave interactions needing time to recover. How rarely you feel replenished afterward. Some people feel loud, even when they whisper. Some connections feel heavy before they begin. You don't blame them. You don't analyze it. You just feel the cost in advance. So you become selective. Not in a sharp way, in a quiet one. You stop chasing closeness. You stop explaining absences. You let relationships soften instead of forcing them to hold. From the outside, it looks like withdrawal. From the inside, it feels like maintenance. People notice you less. They reach out less. And that should hurt more than it does. Sometimes it does, late at night. In small ways. But mostly, there's a strange balance. You miss connection. You don't miss the drain. You wonder if this is how it's supposed to be now. If this is what growing older feels like. Or wiser. Or simply more tired. But the question never stays long. Because answers would require energy you don't want to spend. So you settle into your own rhythm. You learn how to be alone without unraveling. How to sit with thoughts without needing to share them. Your inner world grows quieter, deeper. Others don't notice how much you hold inside. They see calm. They assume balance. They don't feel the restraint it takes. But calm doesn't mean empty. It means contained. Halfway through all of this, something begins to surface. Not as a revelation, more like recognition, a truth you've been living without naming. The lack of friends was never the wound. It was never about not being chosen or not fitting in. It was about how deeply connection happens for you. Every bond forms fully without effort. There is no shallow setting. Even brief encounters leave an imprint. Even casual conversations linger. And because of that, every connection asks more than it appears to ask. You feel responsible for the emotional temperature, for balance, for not adding weight. So you regulate yourself constantly. You hold things back. You carry what isn't yours until one day, quietly, you notice the cost. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You stop offering yourself casually, not out of fear. Out of respect for your own limits. Fewer friends isn't a failure here. It's the result of depth meeting capacity. You don't want many connections. You want ones where you don't have to disappear to stay. Those are rare. So the circle stays small, sometimes very small, and sometimes empty. There is relief in that. And grief too. Relief because your energy is finally your own. Grief because being understood without effort is still something you want. You miss ease. You miss being held without preparation. But you also know what it costs you to be that available. So you wait. Not actively, just attentively. You allow silence. You allow space. Toward the end, things slow down. You stop explaining yourself to people who never felt what you feel. You stop measuring your life by noise. You accept that depth creates distance as often as it creates closeness. And that's not a flaw. The quiet becomes familiar, not empty, just honest. The phone stays still, the room stays calm. And for once, the silence isn't asking anything from you. It's simply there. The silence stays longer now, not as something to endure. More like a presence that doesn't demand explanation. It gives you space to notice smaller things, the way your body reacts before your mind does, the way certain names feel heavier than others. You begin to trust those signals, not analyze them, just notice. You realize how often you once overrode them, how often you stayed when your system wanted to leave, how often you listened past your own limits. That realization doesn't come with blame, just clarity. You see how early it started, long before adulthood. Long before words like boundaries existed. You learned to read rooms before you learned to name feelings. You learned to sense tension before you knew it wasn't yours to carry. Being attuned kept things smooth, kept others comfortable, and you were praised for it, subtly. You were called understanding, easy, strong. No one noticed what it required, so you didn't either. Now, with fewer people around, the contrast becomes clear. Your energy doesn't scatter as much. Your thoughts don't tangle as often. You feel more like yourself, not a better version, a quieter one. Still, there are moments when the old pull returns. A reflex to check on others, to reach out first. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And when you don't, you sit with the discomfort instead of rushing past it. You realize how unfamiliar that used to be, letting discomfort exist without fixing it. That's another reason the circle shrank. You stopped rescuing emotional balance, stopped smoothing everything over, not consciously, gradually. And some connections can't survive that shift. They were built on your presence doing the work, on your steadiness absorbing the excess. When that changes, the structure changes. Some people drift away quietly, others don't notice at all. You don't explain. There's nothing to explain. You're not angry. You're not closed. You're just no longer available in the same way. That difference is subtle, but it's enough. You begin to see how rare mutual regulation actually is. How uncommon it is for someone to notice your weight the way you notice theirs. When it happens, it feels startling, almost disorienting. You feel seen without effort. Heard without translating yourself. Those moments are few, but they matter more than numbers ever did. They remind you that connection isn't gone, it's just precise now. There's a tenderness in that precision. You protect it carefully, not with walls, with honesty. You leave earlier when you're tired. You speak less when words feel heavy. You don't apologize as much. That alone changes things. Some people feel the difference immediately. Others sense it but can't name it. They say you're quieter, more reserved. You let them think that. Inside, you're simply less fragmented. The idea that a full life must look crowded loses its grip. You stop comparing your inner richness to outer noise. You understand now that depth doesn't scale easily. It asks for slowness, for space. And space looks empty from the outside. That no longer bothers you as much. There are still evenings when the quiet feels sharp. When you wonder what it would be like to be effortlessly social, to connect without consequence. But those thoughts pass more gently now. You don't use them against yourself. You know your system. You respect its limits. You understand that what drains you isn't people, it's imbalance. And imbalance used to be everywhere. Toward the end of the day, your breath settles differently. Your shoulders don't stay raised as long. You feel less responsible for how the world feels. That doesn't make you detached. It makes you present in a new way. When you do connect now, it's quieter, slower. There's no rush to merge, no need to prove closeness. You allow space even inside connection. And that space feels honest. You notice that the few relationships that remain feel steadier, less dramatic, less consuming. They don't demand your disappearance. Those connections don't leave you empty afterward. You still feel deeply. That hasn't changed. But you no longer give depth away without consent. As things wind down, the narrative softens. You stop asking whether this is enough. Enough friends, enough connection. You start noticing whether it feels right. And most days it does. Not exciting, not fulfilling in the way stories promise, but grounded. The quiet becomes a place you return to, not escape from. You understand now that having few or no friends was never about absence. It was about how much you carry, how fully you enter, and how carefully you now choose where to place that weight. The room is still, the phone remains untouched. There's no urge to fill the space. Just a steady sense of being where you are. And for the first time in a long while, that feels sufficient.